Good evening, everyone. Welcome tonight once again to Immigrant Tech is Alberta. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And I'll quickly share my screen and just talk about what our group is about. Do you see my screen? Right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So we are a curious group, just tech enthusiasts who are curious about what's happening in the tech space in Alberta, with a special focus on immigrant professionals. And that's because immigrant professionals are just starting to build a network. And even for those who've been in Calgary for years, it still seems like all that's going on in the innovation space is like it's best kept secret. And so now imagine for immigrant professionals who are just building their network, not knowing where to go. So this is a space where we just create that community for people, not just immigrant professionals, who are interested in the space and want to learn what's going on. So it's a bridge into Alberta's innovation community. We represent this exploratory space for those who are interested in tech. And as we meet, we have opportunities for networking and mentoring. And the goal is to curate content that people want to know about. So sometimes we just take different topics and just demystify it and let everybody ask their dumb questions without feeling out of place. So the goal is to provide community generally and support professional immigrants who desire to pivot or to start careers or startups, businesses in tech. And tonight we have Vince O'Gorman and Christie from Vog App Developers, and they'll be sharing a presentation at first, and then mostly we'll have a discussion time. And we're addressing the issue of the shortfall in senior tech talent. We know there are a lot of boot camps out there, a lot of people that are self-learning, and even the universities, it looks like we are getting a lot of traction in getting people interested in tech, but there's still the challenge of people actually getting jobs. And yeah, so let's just talk about this gap. And Vince, at his company, they found a way around this. So we want to discuss that tonight. So I'll let Vince introduce himself, and Christy, if you want to do a brief introduction as well before Vince goes on with the presentation.
Christy, you're up first.
I wasn't prepared to talk. You're supposed to be talking today, Vince. Anyways, we're just really excited here at Vog to, again, just share what we have, again, bridging that gap. But, for all of us, it's really important that we are aligning education with opportunity. And that is exactly what we are about today. And so, yeah, just really excited to share, and hopefully we'll be able to connect with a lot of you today. And if you guys have any questions, we would love to answer them, and what we're actually doing to assist people like yourselves in the industry.
Thanks, Christy. Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Vince O'Gorman. I am the CEO of Vog App Developers. Before we get started tonight, I can tell you a little bit about who Vog is. Who am I? First of all, I am a born and raised Calgarian. I entered the tech industry, probably well over 15 years ago. I put in 15 years. When I was 21, I started working for a big communications company called Shaw Communications. My 15 years during that time, I helped innovate, also work on internal projects. And then towards the end of my tenure there, I was also trying to push for mobile-friendly applications for the techs at Shaw. I have a background in search engine optimization. I created a search engine optimization company in the late 2000s. It was a very successful company. However, I was doing something that was very gray in the eyes of Google. So it only took a couple of years before Google caught on what I was doing. And ultimately, a few updates with their algorithm, and my network wasn't working like it used to. From that, I decided, instead of taking on Google, what was the next opportunity? And right around in 2010, apps were becoming a thing, and Apple was even encouraging people to develop apps for the App Store. That's kind of how my entry into the app industry started to take hold. During 2012, from 2012 to 2015, 2016, because of my previous experience of building my search engine optimization company, I outsourced to every corner of this planet. I can tell you all the countries, but we would spend probably well over an hour going through that. And for the sanctity of time, we'll just say I've tried everywhere. And I realized ultimately at the end of the day, the only way we're ever going to get a quality product that we can love is we build it by people that are here, or people that work under the company. So I made a mandate in 2015, 2016, that Vog does not outsource. And we stuck true to our guns since then. And tonight, I'm going to talk a lot about what I'm a big advocate for and I love and a fan for. It is the industry in itself. You hear a lot of news about the tech industry in Calgary is growing, and you hear all of these wonderful things, but where are the jobs? And ultimately, when you go to Indeed, you see that companies are asking for specific types of employees. And you're going to yourself, you're saying to yourself, well, it doesn't look like it's me. But I'm here to tell you that you're potentially wrong. And so we're going to talk about not only what you can do to bridge the gap, but what companies like Vog and several others are doing behind the scenes to bridge that gap. So a screen share. Okay. So I've been in the news. I've talked to and done several presentations on this in the past. I just get excited talking about the tech industry as a whole, especially in Calgary and Alberta in general. It's a very young industry. It's very fragile. Places like Vancouver and Toronto are quite a few years ahead of us. However, being that we live in Alberta and we are entrepreneurs, we never give up. We're motivated and determined. We're closing that gap very quickly. And I imagine within the next 5 years, Calgary will be Canada's tech hub, if not sooner. But what does this mean for all of us? Well, it's being ready for the industry. One thing that's a disadvantage compared to other industries, trades, being a lawyer, legal, anything that comes with a tradition. It's been an opportunity for employment for years and years and years. The tech industry is relatively young. If you want to go back, it's really only 40 years old. And if you want to really get into where more people have been engaged with it, we're talking less than 20 years. And if we're going to get into mobile, we're talking less than 15. And so the industry is so young and a lot of people don't know where to go. And ultimately the industry evolves so much that what you learned last year could be obsolete this year to a point. So I talked a little bit about me, but what have I done in the past? Well, I'm the CEO of Vog App Developers. I launched a program called Launchpad by Vog. I'm a COO of Shifty Eye Studios. It's a game development company here in Calgary. And we're currently building a game for Paramount Pictures for a big movie franchise. So when people say, what has Calgary got to offer? I can assure you that there's a lot of companies working behind the scenes and they're growing. And we want to keep an eye out for those companies because they're going to be emerging in the next 2 to 3 years or sooner. As an entrepreneur and industry advocate, I love communicating, I love challenging people, and ultimately I'm a father, a husband, and I love having fun. When we talk about the tech industry, Calgary's business is evolving. It's a 7.5 billion with a B digital transformation that's undertaking right now, and it's expected to grow. There's a lot of head offices here in Calgary. A lot of companies aren't off their old ways. A lot of companies are going to the quote unquote cloud. And there's huge opportunity there, and that's what's happening right now. And fun fact, Calgary houses 60% of all Alberta-based tech companies. So it's a huge opportunity for everybody on this call. And I want you to keep an open mind when we go through today, because again, it doesn't matter what your skill is and what you've done in the past. The tech industry is so young that I've seen people come from oil and gas, all the way from people that were in law. I have a person that was going to be a nuclear physicist. He works as an app developer. So there's a lot of skills that you can transfer over. You just got to be aware of them. Companies like Infosys, big company coming to Calgary, 500 open positions. Neo Financial, the guys that started Skip the Dishes, created a financial company. Smen, really amazing company, got rated one of the best companies to work for in Calgary. Halcyon, Critical Mass. Halcyon is a payments platform here in Calgary. Critical Mass, kind of like the grandfather on the block. They've been around for a while, but they do some high-end stuff. They're over in Inglewood. Skip the Dishes, a lot of people don't know, actually has a head office or a office just down the street from us. Robots and Pencils, the original app developers here in Calgary. Acerna, Blackline Safety, pretty kick-ass company, excuse my French. Watch them grow. They used to be a team of 15. I think they're cresting 100, 150, growing like a weed. And they do some pretty cool stuff for monitoring things like H2S and wearable tech for the safety industry. Zero Key, and obviously the most recent one that hit the news, Benevity, the Calgary unicorn that reached $1 billion in valuation. So there's lots of these companies that are growing. But when we talk about the tech industry, this is only a fraction. And these are some of the companies you may want to work for, but these are also the mover and shakers that are trying to change the industry for you guys to grow. But with all these companies, there's little startups that, teams of less than 10 that are growing and are looking for developers, looking for project managers, looking for people to support them on web development. So when we talk about the tech industry, it's quite big. But what is the industry saying? Well, I can tell you, I've sat with SAIT, I sat with the University of Calgary. I'm currently in engagements with Red Deer College. All of them are coming to us. And they're coming to industry and saying, what's wrong with our curriculum? It's not teaching what we're supposed to be teaching. We're not helping. Well, the industry is saying there's too many juniors. The market's saturated with juniors. And what a definition from the industry side of what a junior is someone who has just enough knowledge, but to the company, it's not of value. They're missing a lot of those soft skills, critical thinking, communication. Those are the two key drivers when we're looking for an employee. How do they think? How do they communicate? And to be frank, I don't look at your education. I look at your experience. I look at your motivation. Did you build something to show in your interview? A lot of companies, because there's too much juniors, they're looking globally. And this is actually quite sad, but it's a reality. But you might actually have the skills that a company like myself is looking for. We just don't know about you yet. And the whole point of today is to discuss, how do you open yourself up to that? We're busy. You'll hear this a lot. Companies are extremely busy. Our time is valuable. So when we go and post something on Indeed, it is very important that you understand what that company is doing and that what your success rate of getting into it, and how do you make yourself stand out amongst all those other resumes. When in a recent hiring spree, we're looking for a back-end developer. We got over 100 resumes. We did about 45 interviews, and only one person passed our code challenge. It's not that Vog sets high standards. It's just all the people that submitted those resumes were not fit for the job, or they lied on the resume, which is one of the greatest sins you could do looking for a job. And we'll talk about that today as well. Offline hiring is happening right now. It's a big thing. Companies are talking to each other, trying to find out if they have people that are wanting to move companies. Friends, you got any friends that want to work with us? A lot of companies are tired of using recruiters and Indeed, because a lot of the stuff coming to them isn't accurate. So how do you make yourself stand out? Well, we're going to talk about that again today. And companies ultimately are looking for your commitment. You'd be amazed how many people I've hired just because they actually went to our website and know what Vog is doing. You'd be surprised how many interviews we've canceled early because the person in the middle of interview says, so what do you guys do? That's bad. So we're going to talk about all this stuff today, but the industry is saying something very specific. We're looking for people We want those people to be a part of our company and grow, and we don't want job hoppers. So for you, all of you, this is an opportunity, because there is a lot of companies opening up those jobs that are, entry level, but you have an opportunity to grow with them and learn from them. And companies want to invest in their people so they keep them for a long term. That sticky rate. So how are companies trying to bridge the gap? I've talked to all my friends in the industry. We're not all enemies. We're like the oil and gas companies. I firmly believe the tech industries and the tech companies have to move together, or we die to the competition, especially in Calgary, in Alberta. We got big competition in the other provinces, so we want to make ourselves stand out. So we move and communicate. But companies are offering remote work opportunities. They're driving hard on their company culture. Their social presence has been more relevant now and more open than ever before. They're telling you stories about what they're doing, the projects they're working on. They're in the news. They're making announcements. They're trying to say something. Look at us. But they're not just doing that for investment. They're doing that for you guys to take notice. Being flexible to the needs of employees. This is actually a key thing that all the other business leaders have agreed to. A lot of companies are doing things to get employees and to keep them engaged and drive that culture. So the companies are doing this. So how do you prepare for this? How do you get noticed? Well, the do's. Research the company you want to go work for. I'll give you an example of a young gentleman. His name is Fernando. I met him at an event at SAIT a couple of years ago, 2 years now. This COVID's been a year. But he followed us around the entire event and kept asking me questions. And I thought, this guy's really annoying. But he was doing research on us. And then we had an event at a university in Calgary, and guess what? Guess who showed up? Fernando. It's like, hey, Vince, I saw you. Wanted to talk to you. Is there any internship opportunities? And then we put up a position, and guess what I saw? Fernando's resume. Fernando took the effort, and I said no to him a few times. No, we're not hiring right now. But he was so keen that he wanted to work at Vog. And when it came to hiring, his name stuck up. And so you want to definitely make sure that when you're researching a company and you want to go work at a company, it's a company that you want to work at. Don't put out resumes at companies just because it's a job. Research the ones that you really find you would be a good fit for, or you think that you'd love to work at, and start molding yourself towards that. Now, make your resume personalized. I can't tell you how many resumes we've gotten that it just looks like the person hit push on the send button for the resume to go to us and everybody else that had a job posting that day. You want to personalize your resumes to be key to who you're targeting. Excuse me one moment, the vacuum is going on. We're in an office and the cleaners decided to turn on the vacuum just while I'm talking, so my apologies. So personalizing your resume, building a cover letter, talking about what you're excited about and what you want to learn from that company because they're doing innovative things. Identify your skills that relate to the job. Are they looking for a project manager? Well, read the description. Maybe you're not a project manager, but you might have a lot of the qualities that they're looking for. They say they're looking for a senior level project manager. Obviously, we're not going to go apply for that. But there's no harm in taking a shot. If it says project management and you believe you have a lot of the skills and the qualifications they're looking for, the job title doesn't always mean what they're looking for. I'll be very, very clear on that. Sometimes they're in a hurry and they post a job title, and that's actually not what they're looking for. They're looking for a you. State your commitment to joining the company. I want to join your company because I'm really excited what you're doing. I'm looking for long-term growth with the company. These are all key things that companies are looking for. And it also builds your success rate, getting a second and a third interview and potentially going full with that company. Make sure you know to keep your name on the radar. There's nothing wrong with continuing to apply for positions that they open up if you firmly believe you want to work at that company. We see a lot of resumes, but a lot of times we see the same name come up. We've interviewed them. They try again. We've hired several of those people, not for the previous position or the earliest position we had available for them. The first time they actually applied, it's like 2 or 3 times down the road, their skills match the actual position. that we have. And a no is not forever. I want to be very, very clear. Just because they said no the first time doesn't mean you shouldn't try again. Take that fear away from it. No is not rejecting you because of your skill set. It's not rejecting you for who you are. They found somebody that matched exactly what they were looking for. It just wasn't you. So don't take the rejection personally. Remember, they are busy. The industry as a whole is very, very busy. They're trying to grow very, very quickly. A lot of young companies barely have enough time to eat. I can attest to that. So you have to be cognizant of their time. If you submit a resume to them, don't be upset if it takes them a couple weeks to get back to you, especially in the tech industry. They're very, very young. They're working hard, and they have you on their radar. If they chat with you, start opening up that communication. Be excited. Be you. I can tell you how many times I've had an interview with somebody and I said, just relax. Just be you. I want to see you. So be you. And you know what? Maybe you're not better with practice. What I mean by that is if you get an interview or an opportunity to talk with that company, don't look in the mirror and practice the thing 10 times. Don't practice what you're going to say. Just be real. If you're in a technical interview, you may want to practice, but most companies are going to advise you in advance. There's a technical interview, and they're going to ask you technical questions, especially if you're going to be a developer. But just because you don't know those questions doesn't mean you failed the interview. Truth be known, and I can attest that a lot of companies do this, including ourselves, we set up technical interviews for you to fail. We want to see how you fail. Do you fail with grace? Or you try to BS your way through the entire interview, which we already know, then we know you're lying. And that's what a lot of companies are looking for. Are you lying or are you just being you? And the best thing to say is, you know what? I can't answer that. But I'm really excited if you give me the opportunity to learn and grow to answer that question. That's what companies are looking for. Talk about what you like to do. Companies are humans. They're run by people. They're not machines. We build machines, we build software, but it's people behind the software. So talk about what you like, relate to it, and be excited. You're not dead. You know, at the end of the day, we're all 6 feet above ground right now. We should be pretty happy about that. So when I'm interviewing somebody, I see their excitement and their enthusiasm, I only know that's going to be better in here when we can get them doing something they're really passionate about. So that's when it goes back to when I say apply at places that you want to work at, be passionate about, because what's the point of getting out of bed every day? And trust your gut. For the love of God, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. And this is a life lesson, but also in the industry. If you get a bad feeling from a company, you feel like they're kind of not being truthful with you during an interview, don't go for them. And more importantly, when it comes to the industry, whatever you do, don't devalue yourself. Don't be in a conversation. Don't put in your resume that, you know, you're a junior or you don't know. Don't use negative terms towards you because it shows that you have this feeling about you that you don't think you're right for the job. So how can you inspire me to believe you're right for the job if you're devaluing who you are? Don't do it. You don't need to. Don't say sorry. Be you. Add details to your resume that you, or don't, whatever you do, add details to your resume you can't talk to. It makes you look bad. I don't know where a lot of the resume builders or a lot of people teach resume building, or if it's just go online and grab a template. I don't know what you've done, but I can certainly tell you, don't put things like, you know how to use React, which is a framework. Or you know how to use Jira, which is a project management tool, if you've only ever used it for 10 minutes in your life. Don't put that on your resume. It's irrelevant. Because what happens is the company is going to say to you, tell me about your React experience. You have it on your resume. And you're going to say, oh, I did a project with a friend 5 years ago. It's irrelevant. Put things that are relevant, put things that you can talk to, put things that you can be excited to talk to about on your resume. And most importantly, tidbit for all of my friends here on the call today, never use the word proficient in your resume. Companies like myself, when I see the word proficient, I want to have an interview with you because I want to see how proficient you really are. And for all the resumes I've ever seen that someone says, I'm proficient at, they have bombed their interview for being proficient at it. Don't use that. It's a great word, but it serves no purpose other than it opens you up to failure. Put things that you're proud to talk about, put the things that you know. Apply for a job using a resume that doesn't address the company's needs. Really, at the end of the day, you'll be wasting your time. I can't tell you how many resumes we go through that all I need to do is read the cover letter and it's like, hi, I am applying for your developer position, and it's for a project manager position. I also have resumes that come in that somebody thinks that if they slide in their resume for a software developer, we'll take notice because we're looking for somebody in project management. No, we just throw that out. We never want to see it. And literally, this is how we look at resumes that are irrelevant. We just get rid of them. But it could also, depend on the company, put a target on you for anything you ever submit again. You're irrelevant, they won't want to see anything from you. So at the end of the day, make it personalized to that position, to that company. And don't be sorry for your English. Oh, for the love of God. Do not be sorry that you have ESL, English as a second language. That is not a bad thing. I'm going to say that 75% of the people at Vog alone, English is not their primary language. They're not fluent in it. And they're not sorry for it. It's a power. Be proud of it. I use my team as translators when we're working with teams in Brazil, Thailand, Vietnam, Russia, customers in those places. We have our team members join and translate so we make the engagement comfortable. Be proud that English isn't your strength, and don't be sorry for it. With that said, make sure you can communicate clear, concise when you're in that interview. So again, it comes down to nerves. I've communicated with a guy. I'll give you a story as to the success with this, but I had an individual about 5 years ago. His name was Sui Pham. He's from Vietnam. He came to Calgary, very gifted developer. He probably went to about 35 places, had interviews. Everybody never called him back. Got lots of interviews because of his skills, but never got a call back. Couldn't figure out why. Came in, talked to me, and he says, I think it's my English. It was very broken. And I simply said to him, what can you do? Show me. He drew out a plan for development on a board. And I said, this is how we communicate going forward. And to this day, that's how we still communicate. His English has gotten a lot better. But I don't judge people, and a lot of companies won't judge people based on your skill set for communication as language. It's, can you communicate by drawing? Can you communicate your message another way? So, embrace rejection. If you don't go out there, you're not going to know what people are saying. And if you get an interview, ask the company for an after or discussion, or what do they call that? A debrief. If you don't get that job, can you just give me some pointers as to why I wasn't a successful candidate? But if you don't get this market research as to why you're not getting the jobs, how are you supposed to know to fine-tune your resume? So do your research, accept that rejection, embrace it. Hopefully we don't have too many though. Removing fears is another thing that I found. Skills, right? Interviews, communication, critical thinking, industry knowledge, and development skills and management skills. If you look at the order of those things that I have there in the skills, you'll see that development and management skills are not number 1 and number 2. And I'll tell you why. I can teach you that. Companies can teach you those things. They can train you on languages and frameworks. But they want to see somebody interview well. They want to see you communicate. And they most importantly want to see your critical thinking. Finances, support, wages, salary, expectations, education, removing those fears. How do you do that? Well, there's services. I'm going to talk a little bit about the services. You got Reskill, Launchpad, Windmill, Immigration Service Calgary. There's a lot more. Using services to your advantage will also give you some insight as to what the industry is saying. You'd be surprised that when I talk about that offline hiring, I might call Rumi and say, hey, I'm looking for a developer, any news? Do you have anybody, any insight? I didn't post it. And she's like, actually, I have a friend. Let me see if I can get their resume. That's happening, not just with us, with a lot of companies. So use services, get in there and talk with those services as well, because it's all about networking. I'm not asking you to go build out a Facebook network. Just saying, open yourself up and removing that fear. So trust and established services for employment. As immigrants, and it's even people that have born and raised here, a lot of times we talk to our friends. But when we're talking with Immigration Services Calgary, we were on a call with them, and they raised actually a quite impressive fact that most people that come to Canada, they're new, are actually victimized again. They've left a place to not be victimized, and they come to Calgary, they come to Canada, and they're victimized again. And it's by people that they know, or someone who's told them to go talk to somebody else that they know. Don't use those types of connections. Use systems, use businesses, use services that are free to you to get into and understand what the industries, what businesses are looking for, because businesses like Vog and all of those other companies are talking to Calgary Economic Development, Immigration Services Calgary, Windmill, Reskill. They're talking amongst each other. That's how they network. So if you're talking to a guy that is out of that network, it's not going to serve you any value, a guy or a girl. And you're most likely to be victimized. So when we talk about this, use any training programs you can. They're free, great. Doesn't always necessarily mean they're great for you, but it gets you going. Skill development. There's things online, lots of things. You can go to YouTube actually and start learning some pretty basic development skills if you want to get in development. There's also a platform called Udemy, U-D-E-M-Y. Lots of online courses for very cheap. My own developers go there and do their skill upgrading. If something we're going to do and we're not aware of it, they go there to learn. It's a great platform. Using services like established and regulated services. Definitely use companies that are trying to help you. And I know it might sound like a broken record, but this is the God's truth. This is coming from a company that I can tell you, I've seen people get victimized and they come to us like, how can I trust you as a company? Well, now you're kind of gun shy. And that's bad. We want to remove that fear. So it's harder for me to build trust with you if you've been victimized by somebody. Use established services. Now, when it's you and it comes to companies that are growing, you want to definitely research those companies and find out jobs that excite you and motivate you. If a company is doing R&D or doing AI or machine learning and you're really excited about that, start understanding the lingo that's associated with that. Start doing some homework. Start reading those news articles. Start following that company on their social media, because they will most likely do a lot of announcements or give you some insight to what they're up to on their website. Maybe they have a blog. Read it. Educate yourself. And you'd be amazed. Elon Musk, just to give you guys an idea, has SpaceX. I'm hoping everybody knows what SpaceX is. Do you know Elon never went to school to learn rockets? He never ever took one single course. He taught himself. And how did he do that? He read, learned, read, followed, read, learned. He just learned. He took the time to educate himself. And that is what the industry is about, the tech industry. It's educating, then learning from your counterparts or your your employees, your friends at a workplace. And then you start to see things happen. Now, before I get into some questions, and just so we have etiquette on this, if you have a question, if everybody hopefully knows how to use the little hand, so we're not slaughtered with a bunch of people talking about, hey, I want to ask a question, please use that. But I want to also just address a couple things here. Alberta's tech sector is very young, and I have a couple questions that were for this meeting I got. And how do we know it? How do we know it's growing? How do we know it's strong? How do we know what to do next? I'm going to tell you honestly, we don't. A lot of tech companies don't know what's happening in this industry. It's very, very young, and it's companies that are trying to do something. The government, to be honest, is not very supportive of the tech industry in Alberta. They are still very much oil and gas. But that's not a bad thing, because companies are growing without government incentive. It's a good thing for you guys, because it means jobs are being created without the assistance of a ton of government grants. So long-term employment. So a lot of the challenges in securing talent right now is finding people who are committed. The biggest fear for a lot of employers is that you would come in and then you're only using them to job hop. You're going to use them to launch into IBM, for example. If you want to join a company, definitely state that. Show your commitments, then put a couple of years into a company and then go job hop, but learn as much as you can. And at the point that your skills have plateaued with a company, it is definitely time to move on if they're not bringing value to you. What's worked in the past for us when we talk about finding tech talent? Offline, going to events, social networking with other companies and agencies. Surprisingly, finding tech talent through Indeed is actually not as successful as one might think. There is recruiters, which are always great to get on board with, but recruiters are also looking for specific people. A lot of companies go to recruiters to look for a specific item. So getting involved with those recruiters is an opportunity for you, but it isn't the end of the road. Directly going to a company, watching their job boards, that's what you want to do. A lot of companies will post their jobs on their own job boards. We use Indeed, but it still goes on our job board. And advice for people that are pivoting or new grads or moving from one industry to another. Don't devalue your past experience. And what I mean by that is I've had individuals come in oil and gas, they were a project manager of a site. Guess what? They can project manage a site. I want to know more about how they managed 200-300 people at a site. How did they keep things organized at a site? Because if you can keep things organized at that level, work in a project management team of 10 developers, well, you might not be fully technically inept or technically wise in what they're saying, but can you manage them? Can you drive their excitement to work with you? Most likely. I've also had engineers, electrical engineers, reskill. No pun intended. But reskill, and they end up being great developers. And I said, someone who was also wanted to be a nuclear physicist, reskill as an app developer. So again, lots of opportunity. You just got to honestly, and I know it sounds cliche, you got to believe in it. You got to believe in yourself. So I'm talking about when we're looking for senior talent or even intermediate talent, even junior talent. What Vog did is how we started is we created a platform internally. We were hiring juniors out of SAIT, Mount Royal, University of Calgary, individuals that were excited to join our company, and actually some people that were new to Canada. And we went through a program internally and just bringing them up to speed on a project, communication, working on their critical thinking, soft skills, but ultimately working with them. And that's what we created, which is Launchpad. And that's what Christie's here from. And Launchpad is a program that takes the soft skill side of a lot of people and really amplifies it. Anybody can teach you how to code, just want to be clear. But it's the soft skills that a lot of people fail at. And that's where a lot of newcomers to Canada or people looking to reskill, they've been in employment for years, don't know how to interview anymore. You lost that skill. You've been happily employed for years, or you're in another country. So soft skill development is key. There's programs out there, not just Launchpad, but there's other programs out there that can support that as well. So with all that said, I'm sure somebody has some questions, or if you do, so I'm happy to take those. anybody wants to put up their hand.
Well, thank you so much, Vince. That was a lot of great information there.
Thank you.
Good thing we are recording this.
Yes.
So if you could talk a little bit more about Launchpad, who do you take on? Like who can apply, and what are you looking for in those you admit?
Absolutely. So Launchpad is a program that takes junior developers and advances them to more of the intermediate type developer that companies are looking for. We take individuals that have had past experience in development. Maybe they've worked on C++, which no one uses anymore except for oil and gas. And we tool them to what the industry is doing right now in languages that are relevant, that the industry is using constantly in developing software. On top of what Launchpad does, we work on the soft skills, interviewing 101. How do you interview with a tech company? A lot different than interviewing with a traditional company. Communication, critical thinking, using tools that the industry is using, like Jira for a project management tool. How do you time track? All of these things that we do in our day-to-day, we're teaching in Launchpad because this is what everybody else is doing. Now, Vog, selfish plug for Vog, is forward thinking, and we are moving in aggressively to cloud computing, cloud services, microservices, all of the fun stuff that Amazon is releasing and Microsoft is releasing. So to give everybody an idea, we are only 2 weeks behind a lot of the services Amazon's releasing. So a lot of times we develop something that Amazon breaks, but that's where we are as a forefront technology company and innovators. However, when it comes to Launchpad as well, a lot of people are like, well, you need somebody with some skill. And we are looking at actually taking on a junior program and then developing a curriculum for that coming in August, where if you have no skill whatsoever, we want to talk with you because we want to start getting people into the industry. So in short, that is what Launchpad is. So
is Launchpad a boot camp?
I don't want to call it a boot camp. I think Christie and I don't like that term. Boot camps mean that you come to it and we tell you, do, listen to us. That's not what Launchpad is. Launchpad is a professional development course. We'll call it that. And you would work with one of our instructors who is also a developer. We're a firm believer that having instructors that are developers gives you real world knowledge to date, not something that was built years ago and still taught over and over. So our Launchpad recruits today will learn something a lot different than our Launchpad recruits 12 months from now, because we're constantly innovating the program.
All right. So let's say I am a bootcamp graduate and I haven't found a job yet, and it's because I don't have the experience they're asking for. What can I do?
That's a great opportunity. That's a great question. This is where Launchpad, I think, comes into play. So when the minute you start up for Launchpad, I don't want to talk too much about Launchpad's business model, but when we start up for Launchpad, we're running people through a real world scenario as if you were working in a real working environment. You get to build projects that are taken right off the floor. They're sample projects. They're not working for Vog, just to be clear. They're sample projects that our teams can play with, but you're also having real world client engagement. So our clients, our wonderful clients, have signed up to join the sample mock client engagements with our developers, with our team members in Launchpad, giving you that real world experience. And that's really what we're driving. What is happening in the real world? The only impactful difference is that with Launchpad, you can mess up a few times. In real world, we can't mess up because we lose money. So that's where the training ground for preparing people, especially those that aren't getting employed. And we talked to several amazing and talented people that are just not getting hired. And a lot of times I can probably look at all of your resumes on this call right now and pick out 5 things that stand out like that. And that's another key thing that we do at Launchpad, is we work on the resume side and tuning people into the knowledge of what the industry is looking for. So it's the nature of the beast. If you know what that person or what that company is looking for, what the industry is doing, all you need to do is do what they're looking for and it'll go pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So playing the devil's advocate here, why can't employers hire juniors and then train them to become seniors on the job?
That's a great question. So employers right now are looking for hit the ground running type employees. A junior, just to let everybody know, on average costs a company anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 to train. It's a lot of money, and there's no guarantees. What these companies are looking for is not that they don't want to invest in you. They want people that they can take and mold very quickly and get them working. And with juniors, a lot of the times too, what will happen with a junior is you will just go in, you might get an entry level position, but you're just going to work on something like bugs, or you work under somebody. It's kind of deflating if you're excited to work in the industry. So this is why a lot of companies don't look for juniors or have a little bit of an issue with juniors, because the market has too many of them and they're needing more intermediate developers to work on projects right now. Otherwise, these companies aren't going to be able to close their projects or build out their next phase of their platform and ultimately make more money to continue to hire more people. That's why.
I did have a discussion with a recruiting agency recently, and so I was saying, why do you measure experience by years? Like you say, you want 3 to 5 years. What if they can show experience in another way, like with work that is done? Because if we're saying the tech space itself is young, most of these companies are young. So why do we think like by some stroke of miracle we will have mature talent? Like it's just not practicable. So why then are we asking for 3 to 5 years? Why not ask for another way to demonstrate competence?
So that's a great question. And a lot of times companies are asking for 3 to 5 years because they don't know how to ask for what they're looking for. 3 to 5 years experience, and then you say, I'm looking for an iOS developer with Swift experience for 3 to 5 years. Well, Swift has only been around for 5 or 6. So I found the subject matter expert on the Swift. No, that's not the case. But what you can do, and this is what comes up. I get a lot of, and Indeed is good for this. They say minimum 3 to 5 years criteria. A lot of times people that we hire don't meet the 3 to 5 criteria, but they can show that they have the experience. One of the key differentiators from tech companies versus other companies is that they might send you a code challenge. This is one thing that we train in Launchpad for, a code challenge, a technical challenge. And that's where you showcase your skill. Because I had a guy, a young fella here, start at Vog. He worked 2 years and he went to work at Google. And he told me Google's interview is very similar. They're going to ask you to go to a whiteboard and draw an algorithm for a 52-card deck, a deck of cards, and how many times you would shuffle it before you'd find the king of spades. That's what algorithm he had to draw on the board. And he told me he started to write something out and how he would code it. And then he stopped halfway and he was telling them how he would do it. And that's how they hired him. It wasn't the fact that he could show it, it's he could explain his methodology, how he would do it. Whether he's right or wrong, he'd have to figure that out. But he was able to say, this is how I'd approach that. And so again, that's what we're looking for. That's what you could, achieve if you don't have the years of experience behind you, is saying, let me show you. Okay.
Diana, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, Vince. I'm Diana Wong-Doolan, and I appreciate the presentation that you walked us through, and I did see the media around your Launchpad release, so congratulations to you and Christie. And I'm wondering, I just wanted to double back on the challenges that you mentioned other companies are facing. And I heard, and I just wanted to clarify, you're saying you're finding it challenging to find people who are committed. Is that Vog's biggest challenge in attracting talent?
For us, probably not, because once they get in here, they really like working. So we hope that they like staying here. But it's actually more of an interview question that we ask people and to see how they respond. A lot of companies will ask that, like, this is actually quite a common question. What is your plans for 2 to 5 years from now? That's a trick question. It's fully loaded for you to answer incorrectly, and they're going to either pick you for a second interview or not. And the proper response is, I want to grow with your company. That's your response. And so that's what companies are looking for. So that's what I'm talking about when we talk about the commitment. And companies are a little scared of that, is because I've heard people say, well, you know what, I'd like to spend a year or two learning here and then, move on. And it's like, well, we're going to spend all this time and effort with you, but you want to leave us. And I know it's not ideal to spend your lifetime at a company, but companies are looking for some turn on their investment. Really.
Of course.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And do you think it will help if the government or some other way of funding gives incentive to employers to take on junior tech talent? What do you think about that? Yeah.
Currently due of recent graduates, but there's not a ton of investment in people looking to reskill, which I'm hoping in the coming years, especially in the short term, we start to see that investment. I was reading some comments on one of the articles, and thank you for bringing that up, Diane. I appreciate that. And when someone said, oh, well, companies should pay for training. Okay, that's great. If I hire 10 of you, it's going to cost us $400,000. We just randomly don't have $400,000 that we feel like spending on training, and there's no guarantee on that return. So when we talk about, why are companies not spending more money on training? Well, they're spending tons, but to spend a lot more to train people from the ground up is very, very expensive. And so if the government comes in and says, hey, we're going to incentivize you to take on more juniors, I think that would be amazing. But I'm not going to hold my breath, because I think we can all attest, you never want to put your money on the government. Okay.
Another challenge I notice a lot is, so people graduate from boot camps or other kinds of programs, and they can't even find internship spaces, like even if it's unpaid.
Yeah.
So what is the challenge for you as an employer? What's the challenge in taking on an intern?
Well, the problem is actually not necessarily the intern, it's the boot camp itself. So there is some boot camps, and I can't tell you what those are, but there's some that have got a bad name. And so employers just automatically see people going through that, and they step back and they don't want that person. And so you have to be critical of what your boot camp is, but what is that boot camp teaching you? If the boot camp is just going to teach you to code, you have to realize that they're teaching you only 10 or 20% of what you need to know to be successful for an employer. And what kind of soft skills do you have is going to be a bigger focus on. If you're looking for, and I hate to say it, but anybody can do development. Anybody can develop from point A to point B. I tell my team that. My kid can develop from point A to point B. He can build a small app. But it's the critical thinking that companies look for. That forward thinking. What happens if the customer or the app user does this? That's what companies are looking for, those people that think ahead, look towards what can I mediate or remedy now to take care of any issues further down the line. And so again, going back to how, if you take a boot camp, what does that do for you? Talk to the boot camp and see what kind of success rate they have, right? Talk to the boot camp and figure out, is that a boot camp that's either going to get me employed, or is it just going to build my skill? And that's a key indicator. There's a couple that focus on employment. So they're preparing you for the industry.
Like you for Launchpad, you're partnering with a recruiter, right?
We're partnering with a couple recruiters, and we're also connected with a lot of our industry partners, other companies. So I'm going to use Helsum, for example. Helsum, their hiring manager, her name is Annabelle. She comes to Launchpad to do mock interviews with our students. She loves doing it. But when we have our students ready, and if they're hiring, guess what we say? Annabelle, you're hiring. We got some students that match what we think would be a great criteria for that position you have open. And we've had successful interviews with Helsum and our Launchpad students. So not just the recruiters that you're connected with. We're trying to work with other companies to keep their staffing up and finding the stickiness. And that's one of the things. I want to connect somebody in Launchpad with a strong cultural fit to that company that they're interested in. I'm not going to say, you want to go work at a payments platform? You want to tell us and say, yeah, I'd actually like that opportunity. Then we'll create that engagement for you. So opportunity there. There's other boot camps that just train you how to code. And then they have industry day where employers like me come to it and we ask a bunch of questions. We usually leave there feeling pretty deflated because the questions we asked weren't accurately answered.
And do you then give them this feedback? Like, do they know what's lacking?
Not at those other boot camps. Not at all. The one benefit too when you're, I guess, Launchpad, and we're going to talk about the program a little bit there, but you get to sit with me and talk about critical thinking 101. It's one of the courses I teach. I also do mock interviews with people because if you can sit in front of a CEO or a hiring director or an HR person, I'm going to tell you what signs they're showing you when you're starting to lose that interview. No one teaches you that, but we will. And I can tell you the keys are quite clear when you're in an interview and you see that person starting to, and I've done this in an interview. If my interview is boring, I start looking at my phone and checking out my emails. I'm busy. I'm already dead. This interview's dead to me. And I've had people bring me back and get me engaged. Or if it's video, if you see the interview lean in, you've got them. And these are the kind of the soft skills we're going to teach you to get that engagement, because ultimately you want to impress that company. So how do we do it? And what to watch for.
Amazing. I saw you raised your hand. If you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi Vince. Thank you for this incredible platform. I just wanted to ask, so you talk a lot about critical thinking, right? And that is something that I also went to a boot camp, and that was something like they taught us, right? But my question is, how can a recruiter like get critical thinking from like a candidate in such a short time, right?
Like in your resume, right? In your application.
No, not just in the resume, like during the interview process.
Oh, okay.
Especially when you are giving like a tech assessment, because sometimes you're giving the tech assessment on the spot and sometimes you're giving a take-home assessment, right? But when you have like the tech assessment on the spot, even when you don't necessarily get the answer, like you said, how can you tell, okay, this person didn't get the answer, but they are good critical thinkers? That's one. And then my second question will be, have you ever employed someone even when they didn't pass the tech assessment? Yeah, because a lot of people say like you don't have to pass it, but then yeah, I don't know if that has actually ever happened. Yeah.
So the first one on the how to identify critical thinking. I usually sit with some of my senior developers, and they're asking technical questions. And a lot of times, again, it's a rigged question. We purposely are putting something in there for you to see how you either respond or you go, that doesn't make any sense. And a lot of times what happens is we get someone talking and we have an open discussion like this. Then they say something and we ask them, well, how would you solve that in that case? And that's where the critical thinking starts to show. Because now I'm asking you to think of something you weren't prepared to answer. And we get to see the wheel spinning and we get to see your response. Now, if you get tightened up and you're like, I don't know, well, that's not necessarily you don't know the question. You haven't even thought about it. Like you haven't even tried. A lot of the times, and this is a skill I find that with a lot of critical thinkers or people that are using critical thinking, they actually repeat what you said and they think about it first. So you asked me a question like, Vince, how would you fill up a glass of water if you were low on water and the pump is dry? What would you do? And I'm like, well, how would I fill up the glass of water if the pump is dry? Like you hear them mock you, like a mockingbird, or parrot you. But that is where it's a key indicator for me that you're now thinking about what I said versus you go, like those are signs that you're stuck in the question. Now, we're a little bit tougher on the hiring for that. But your second question on the technical, we have had people bomb our technical challenge, and I've hired them. Okay. I'm going to tell you a question, actually, and I tell everybody when they bomb their technical, this is a question I give off the hook. And I love giving this question, but I'm going to present it to you guys today. So don't tell your friends if they come work. And I will use a different one if you guys come try to work at Vog. I'll give you a scenario, and let me give you the scenario here. We're on the 9th floor of a building, which we are, You come up the elevators, and all of a sudden the elevators are on fire. The staircases that go up and down are on fire. There's 20 people on the floor, including your grandmother and a baby. What do you do?
Okay, so let me get the question straight. On the 9th floor, and the building is on fire upstairs and downstairs.
No, you don't jump from the 9th floor.
No, definitely.
No, it was a comment. What do you do? This is a question for you. I can see some comments, and people feel free to comment, but let her answer this question first. What do you do?
For me, I feel like I will look around for like a fire extinguisher or something, and yeah, maybe call 911 while doing that, and yeah, just try to calm everyone down because that's the kind of person I am. So
Good.
Yeah.
Do you know of that question I've asked about 60 times? You were the 6th person to ever mention a fire extinguisher.
Oh wow.
Interestingly enough, I've hired somebody that said, let me get this straight. There's 20 people, a baby, and my grandmother. I was like, yeah. And she said, I'm going to save my grandmother and everybody else can die. I don't care.
Oh my God.
Guess what? I know it sounds morbid, but I hired her. And the reason I hired that person is it showed her true colors that in her team, which, you become a family when you join an organization, she will jump on grenades for her team to protect them if she's willing to do that for someone she cares about, including her grandmother. So, and to this day, that person is very much that type of attitude. So to give you an idea, those type of questions is what reveals the person's character. I've had people just hum and haw and say, I smashed a window. And it's like, there's no creativity, there's no forward thinking. So just to give you some insight, that's how we try to determine forward thinking and critical thinking as well.
Okay, thank you. That was a great.
Sorry about that. I love the answers. Call 911, jump. Yeah, good. Anybody else got any other questions? Oh, I think we have a
Kate was asking something about critical thinking. Has it been answered, Kate, or do you still have anything to clarify?
Yeah, it's actually already been answered. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate.
Jack, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Vince. Thank you for your time. My name is Jack, and I'm an immigrant, and I came to Canada, did petroleum engineering, and worked in the oil field for several years. And now I'm reskilling with EvolveView for full stack developer.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what's the headcount change for your company in the past few years? And for Vog, what's the future focus and the vision, and what's the headcount expansion plan? That's all my question.
Wow. I wasn't hoping I'd get answered all those questions, but if we have the time, that's amazing. Thank you, Jack. First of all, I'm really excited that you're in EvolveView. We've had Launchpad students go through that. I will not knock that program. I hope that you get a lot out of it, as our other students have. That's a great opportunity as well. In regards to our team, we had 3 in 2016. We've crossed 70 some odd as of this week, and I plan on hiring about another 4 people in the month of May. Pre-COVID, we entered COVID with 27 employees, to give you an idea. We've scaled up 50 some odd employees since then. It wasn't COVID necessarily, because when COVID started, our phone lines and our emails and contacts were actually quite dead. We didn't actually have new business for a couple months there. It was kind of scary. But then the market kind of started to demand online stuff, and people become out of the worry of what COVID was. And so again, business picked up, and then we had a backlog because everybody hadn't communicated with us for 4 or 5 months, and everybody's really motivated now. And more than ever, we're growing like crazy. Our expansion plans for Vog, we're hopefully, our plans are by the end of June, we will have established in Toronto. So we're moving a very, very aggressive approach to expanding in Toronto and building a team out there. And then we're also expanding into Texas, which is another market for us, very similar to Calgary market. So we can relate to a lot of those companies that are energy companies in Texas. Aside from that, Vog is building its own SaaS product. I can't tell you more than that, but other than that, it is a software as a service. And we plan on having anywhere from 60 to 100 employees grow to that team within the next 24 months when we launch actually in December. So lots of expansion and lots of growth here just in Calgary. But we're really excited to grow our team. So, and thank you for the clap.
Well, thank you so much. That's amazing growing story.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Jack.
thanks for asking that question, Jack. Now we know one more company to look out for. Right. So I don't see any other hand raised.
Awesome.
So if anyone is interested in Launchpad, what are the steps?
Definitely reach out to Christie, who's our director. And you can go to the website launchpadbyvog.com, or you can go to Vog's website, vogappdevelopers.com, and Launchpad is on there, the link to it. And really next steps is going to Launchpad, fill out the form, and we're going to have an interview, a one-on-one with all of you, whoever apply, and we're going to see where the fit is. And really we're going to gauge, are you ready for our intermediate program, or would you be a better candidate for our junior program, which we're building right now? So there's lots of opportunity with Launchpad. Again, Jack mentioned Evolve U. I got to give credit to that. I'm not going to be selfish and say we know everything. Evolve U is a great platform as well. So I hope, Jack, that they are giving you a lot more information and obviously skilling you up to do that. And maybe, Jack, I don't know your experience, but you might be able to say, like, there is a lot of synergies with especially energy companies and then moving and pivoting to software. There's a lot of those skills that are transferable. It's just, you have to learn how to work with relevant and current languages, maybe. So yeah. Okay.
Okay, we are past 8 o'clock. So if there's no other question, I don't know if Christy wanted to add anything. Do you want to throw your contacts in the chat or something, Christy? If you have anything to add.
We have it on the presentation. Vince, if you want to throw it up, that last page there.
I will share my screen. I guess I forgot that. Sorry, team. So just in closing, and I guess I want to not sound like a broken record, everyone. I want all of you to realize that every one of you, regardless of what you think right now, have the potential to do well, especially in the tech industry. There is a lot of transferable skills. There is definitely a learning curve for a lot of you, but it is such a growing industry, and it's such a fun industry to be in 99% of the time when you don't have a project due tomorrow. But reality is that this is an exciting opportunity for everyone. It's, I'm oil and gas. I was born here. My parents were in oil and gas. That industry is suffering. And so the tech industry is definitely that beacon of new opportunity for anybody, regardless of skill level. And so I just want to reiterate, if you believe you can and really commit yourself, the opportunities are endless in this industry. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Vince and Christy, for coming tonight. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us tonight. And with that, we can call it a night. If anyone wants to stay back to hang out, I'll leave the room open for about 10 more minutes, but I'll end the recording now.
Okay, and I'll stick around if anybody has any other questions as well.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Thanks everyone though.